Welcome back to TPS. There are some head coaches out there that just never succeeded with the opportunities they were provided with. Others, of course, are too old school and their minds don't fit the way the game is played today. In this video, we're going to talk about a few recently fired coaches in sports that deserve another kick at the can. And you just know they're going to get it sooner or later. I'm Justin Fraction, and today we present 10 recently fired coaches that deserve another chance. At TPS, we post videos every single day, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe. Then click the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video. And a huge shout out to Evan Scorpio for suggesting this video list. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, leave your ideas down below. You never know, we might use one and give you a shout out. Number 10, John Fox. Yes, his 3-year tenure with the Chicago Bears was a disaster, but the vast majority of NFL coaches wouldn't have had much success with that group either. Now, let's not forget what Foxy did with the Carolina Panthers and Denver Broncos. In Carolina, he took over as head coach in 2002. A year later, Fox guided the underdog Panthers to Super Bowl 38, where they narrowly fell to the New England Patriots. Fox led Carolina to an NFC Championship game appearance in 2005, plus an NFC South title in 2008. He would take over as head coach of the Broncos in 2011, inheriting a team that had been a downright disaster for 5 years. Well, Fox found a way to lead Denver to an AFC West title with Tim Tebow and a fairly talentless team. Now, with Peyton Manning as a starter, Fox led Denver to 3 more AFC West titles and a trip to Super Bowl 48. You see, Fox has a history of taking over 2 terrible teams and making them Super Bowl finalists. He's obviously better off working on a defense-first team and preferably a non-rebuilding group. For a club that is looking to win now, Fox is a prime candidate and deserves a chance to finally win that elusive Super Bowl. Number 9, Mike YEOH. Back in the 2011-12 season, the Minnesota Wild sucked, so they hired Mike YEOH to become their new bench boss. After a frustrating first year, YEOH would take them to the playoffs in each of the next 3 seasons before getting fired late in the 2015-16 campaign. Still, YEOH went 173, 132, and 44 in just under 5 seasons with the Wild, and he led them to a pair of playoff series victories. When the St. Louis Blues fired Ken Hitchcock during the 2016-17 season, YEOH took over for the final 32 games, and he went 22, 8, and 2 and got them to the postseason, leading the Blues to an upset victory over his former Wild team in round 1. The Blues struggled early in 2018-19 and fired YEOH. They left behind a superb .590 winning percentage in St. Louis. Okay, so this guy has taken over 2 struggling teams and got them to the playoffs twice? Sign me up. YEOH just found himself stuck in 2 impatient markets where it's championship or bust. Put YEOH with a team that's willing to commit to him, and you'll see the results. He'll be a hot coaching candidate and won't be out of work much longer. We know it. Number 8, Marvin Lewis. Don't laugh. Okay, now you can laugh a little bit. Yeah, Marvin Lewis overstayed his welcome with the Cincinnati Bengals. What was he supposed to do? Just leave all that money on the table and take a lower coaching position with another team? Of course not. Lewis coached the Bengals for 16 seasons and probably about 5 years too long. But let's not forget the positives he did while in Cincinnati. He took over a long-time losing franchise in 2003, and 2 years later, the Bengals won 11 games and captured the AFC North crown. It was their first playoff berth in 15 years. Lewis led the Bengals to the postseason 7 times, including 4 division titles. It's not his fault that the front office and ownership refused to spend big money in free agency, or they kept bringing in troublemakers like Adam Pac-Man Jones and Vontaze Burfict. Lewis was greatly admired and respected by his players, and he did so much work in the Cincinnati community. For example, his charity continued to help students in the city even after he was fired. Oh, and Lewis is one of the greatest defensive minds of this era. The Bengals' D was often a top 10 unit before the team began imploding in 2016, and he was defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl 35 championship team. Lewis absolutely deserves another head coaching gig. He turned the Bengals around in little time and made the most of not-so-great rosters and dealt with a bunch of problematic players. The guy deserves one last crack at a not-so-dysfunctional organization. Number 7, Jason Kidd. You folks obviously remember Kidd as the Hall of Fame point guard who earned 10 All-Star selections and an NBA championship with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. But his head coaching career has not been half bad by any means. He took an aging Brooklyn Nets team to the playoffs in his first season as head coach, leading the team to a first-round upset over the Toronto Raptors. Kidd then left for the Milwaukee Bucks and experienced some success there, overseeing the rise of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kidd did fairly well with a young and rebuilding Bucks team, taking them to the playoffs in 2015 and 17 before surprise firing the following year. Kidd has only been a coach for 4.5 years now, but we like what we've seen from him. Kidd would best fit a rebuilding team in need of a proper leader, a player's coach if you will. We think he would shine with the Phoenix Suns, Chicago Bulls, or Atlanta Hawks. Number 6, Jack Del Rio. This man has a better resume than you might think. Jack Del Rio took over a struggling Jacksonville Jaguars team in 2003, and he quickly went to work in restoring relevance to the franchise. He led them to the playoffs in 2005 and 7, plus a 9-win season in 2004. Del Rio never had a great quarterback to work with, and the talent on his roster was limited. Nonetheless, Del Rio made the Jaguars an annual playoff contender before getting fired in the midst of the 2011 season. Del Rio then became defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos in 2012, a position he'd hold for 3 years. That defense made it to Super Bowl 48, and a year later, Del Rio became head coach of the Oakland Raiders. He helped Derek Carr take his game to another level, and the Raiders finished 2016 with a 12-4 record, and they made the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. But Oakland fired Del Rio after the 2017 season, mainly because owner Mark Davis wanted John Gruden so badly. The latter got an $100 million deal, and Del Rio was not hired for 2018. But why? This guy has coached 2 terrible franchises and turned them into playoff teams in little time. He was also on staff for the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl 35 championship team. Del Rio is a defensive guru and has showed an ability to fix a team quickly. This guy could find defensive coordinator work again soon, but we think he ought to be a head coach again. The resume speaks for itself. Number 5, ALAIN Vigneault. Vigneault has coached 3 teams throughout his career. 2 of those teams won the President's Trophy and reached the Stanley Cup final under Vigneault's guidance. Vigneault coached the Vancouver Canucks for 7 years, led them to the playoffs 6 times. This included a trip to the 2011 Stanley Cup final and 2 President's Trophies. He compiled an excellent .632 winning percentage there. Vigneault became the bench boss of the New York Rangers in 2013 and took them to the Stanley Cup final in his first year. In 2015, the Rangers won the President's Trophy as the NHL's best team. But New York fired him after a disappointing 2017-18 season, and Vigneault was not hired for the following year despite a plethora of coaching changes. Folks, this guy has 648 coaching wins and gets his team to the playoffs practically every year. Players love his easygoing coaching style, and it won't be long before he gets his 4th NHL head coaching gig. Number 4, Tom Thibodeau. Now, Coach Tibbs had quite the disappointing tenure with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Well, sort of. He mortgaged the future for Chicago Bulls All-Star Jimmy Butler at the 2017 draft, pairing up the two-way stud with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. Problem is, Butler grew tired of Minnie and requested a trade after 1 year. The Timberwolves sent him to the Philadelphia 76ers early in the 2018-19 season. And let's not forget Thibodeau's excellent tenure as head coach of the Chicago Bulls. Even without Rose for much of his time in the Windy City, Thibodeau consistently guided Chicago to the playoffs. That included a trip to the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals, the same season in which Rose won the MVP award. Thibodeau is a brilliant defensive mind, and in the right system he can help turn a team around. You know, kind of like what he did in Chicago and Minnie, for 1 year at least. A .589 career winning percentage is nothing to laugh at. Number 3, Dusty Baker. In his managerial career, Dusty Baker was named NL Manager of the Year 3 times. After the 2017 season, he placed 15th all-time in managerial wins with 1,863, and anywhere Baker went, his team simply won. Take a look. Baker, of course, has a strange and unfair history of being fired despite tremendous success. Unfun fact? The Giants, Reds, and Nationals all let go of Baker right after he took them to the postseason. The Nationals were rude for firing Baker in 2017, right after he led them to their first consecutive division titles in franchise history. Washington missed the playoffs in 2018 and lost Bryce Harper in the 2019 free agency. Oops. Even if he hasn't won a World Series as a manager, the man is simply a winner. He turns his teams around in a heartbeat. Baker doesn't bring the mind of advanced analytics and data like all these other young GMs, but his old-school managing style still works in today's game. He wants to manage again, and a contending team should waste no time hiring him. Playoff meltdowns be darned, this is the man players want to play for. It's ridiculous that he's always hitting the open market. Can someone hurry up and sign him already? Number 2, Mike McCarthy. Say what you want about his last 2 years in Green Bay, but Mike McCarthy is still one of the NFL's smartest minds in football. It's not exactly his fault that the Packers front office failed to bring in the stars to complement 2-time MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers. McCarthy was hired by the Packers in 2016, and his success there cannot be ignored. He posted a superb 125, 77, and 2 record and led the Packers to 4 NFC Championship game appearances. This was highlighted, of course, by a Super Bowl 45 victory over the Green Bay Packers. The Packers won 6 NFC North Division titles with McCarthy, but in the midst of the disastrous 2018 season, the team had to fire him and move on. Don't let that sour ending cause you to overlook McCarthy's success. This guy would be a perfect fit for a young up-and-coming team. We thought the Cleveland Browns and New York Jets made perfect sense before they went with Freddie Kitchens and Adam Gase, respectively. McCarthy is one of the better defensive-minded head coaches around, but his offensive creativity cannot be ignored either. Remember, his offense produced 2 MVPs for Aaron Rodgers. McCarthy surprisingly decided to sit out the 2019 season and take a rest from coaching. Consider him the top candidate available when 2020 opens up. He'll find a job soon. This man deserves another chance, and we know he'll get it. Hey, the New York Giants and Houston Texans should be looking at him closely. And number 1, Joel QUENNEVILLE. Really? This guy led the Chicago Blackhawks to 3 Stanley Cups from 2010 to 2015, and he sits second all-time in wins, only behind Scotty Bowman. After being fired by the Hawks in the midst of the 2018-19 season, QUENNEVILLE stood at 890 coaching wins. The Blackhawks made a controversial decision to fire QUENNEVILLE as he and GM Stan Bowman were reportedly caught in a power struggle. The front office blamed QUENNEVILLE for the recent shortcomings, even though all he did was lead this group to 3 Stanley Cup championships. There were bundles of NHL coaching changes in 2018 and 19, but surprisingly none of them involved QUENNEVILLE. You can bet that this guy A, won't be out of work long, and B, is deserving of a second chance, of course. QUENNEVILLE saw plenty of success with the St. Louis Blues and Colorado Avalanche before he became Chicago's bench boss in 2008. Simply put, no NHL coach makes a bigger impact on his team than Coach Q. There's a great chance the Blackhawks forever regret firing QUENNEVILLE because pure winners like him don't come around very often. The only questions are when QUENNEVILLE will get another chance and which team it'll be with, because for some reason, 3 Stanley Cups and 452 wins in Chicago were not enough for the Blackhawks. Mind-boggling, completely mind-boggling. Which other recently fired coaches deserve another chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.